So, coming up on my to-do list, yeah, that fan motor has seen better days. Also, okay, but yeah, so the switch is burned out too. That will be a separate video. But this one is going to be, we're going to replace that fan motor. All right, so obviously the first trick is going to be getting to that fan and finding it. Now, on the big cars, and you get your Impalas, the fan motor is going to be kind of right up here in the side because this box is going to be moved over a little bit. The car's a little wider. Also, in your truck, like your C10s, they're going to be right up here off the firewall. Newer cars, they're going to be like they are today. They're going to be inside in the dash, up in the bottom. A-body cars, yeah, we're lucky like that. They are right about here. So it's a little bit of work to get to. It's not hard, but there are some extra steps we're going to have to take to get to it. All right. So, step number one, let's get this front end up in the air, and let's get this front wheel off. Okay, here's the part where your results may vary. Now, the blower motor is, get the camera here, right back here, right behind this inner fender lining. Now, the debate rages on as to whether or not the inner fender well is better to have them metal, better to have them plastic. I'm not going to get into that, but this one's plastic, and I have to tell you, I've never had an issue with the plastic liners. I'm not going to get into the pros and cons and all that kind of stuff. You can read about that, make your own decision, and do whatever you think's best for you. But for something like this, the plastic's going to be a lifesaver. I'll tell you why, because again, being behind here, obviously I'm going to have to remove the bolts and stuff holding it in place. But being plastic, I only have to remove about half or so of the bolts. I should be able to flex this out of the way enough to kind of get in there and get the motor out and swap the motor out. If yours is metal, you're going to have to remove the entire liners. You're going to have to go all the way around. Sorry, light. You have to go all the way around, remove all the bolts, anything that's attached to the liner. There's screws. Sorry, it's got tight quarters. This is hard for me to get the camera through here. These screws poking through. These are the screws that are holding the heater control valve onto the fender liner. So obviously that'll have to be removed. But for me, I shouldn't have to remove that. Just these mounting bolts, like say a halfway or maybe slightly more than halfway, and I'll be able to flex this and get that out of the way and get back there into the motor. All right, so that's the next step. I'll catch you all up here in a minute. Okay, got the fender well pulled down, and sorry about the rain in the background, but what can you say? It's the Texas Gulf Coast. Rain pops in and leaves all the time. Okay, so again, being able to flex the plastic out of the way, I just grabbed a bungee cord and tied it down, just kind of help keep it pulled down. And again, sorry about the view. It's just going to be hard to do with the tight axis. I mean, I can get my hands up in there, no problem, but getting the camera may be a little tricky. Okay, so there's the motor. And if you notice, of course, there's two wires going into it. There's the purple, that's your main power wire going into the fan motor. Now, the speed control is upstream of that, so you only have the one wire going into the fan motor. And you see that black wire, and again, it's going to be hard for me to see what I'm doing and use my finger. It's this black wire. It's not actually on as part of the motor casing. It's this little tab that screws in. So this is a ground. So that's how that ground is tied in. And a breather tube. I don't know if you can see that. Again, it's dark. I'm now my arm's blocking the light. So there's a vent tube up there that'll be reconnected. So I'm looking at don't think that can't be, that's in too good a shape to be original to the car, but this car again is so old, it could have been replaced 30 years ago for all I know. So, yeah, now it's a good time to check that against the new one, which this is the one I got. Just dear last PM102, and I've already looked at it and compared it against the old one, and it is the same. So kind of like I was saying before, there's your power lug, and then you have these two holes, and this little one is where that ground tab ties into, and then there's the hole where that vent tube plugs into. So a good thing that vent tube is still in good shape, and that might be a little more difficult to source. As far as finding this one, I just got this at AutoZone. It wasn't on the shelf, but some stores did have them on the shelf. They're a little far away from me. I just went to my local one, and I went in the morning, and they got it to me that afternoon. Like a whopping $25. Yeah, you can get these. You can order these from the specialty part suppliers. It might be a little bit better quality, but I'm sure this one's fine. And again, it was half the price. I didn't have to do shipping. I had to pay for shipping. So I mean, it was really straightforward. Of course, it does not have the cage, which is fine. The cages, unless something gets in them and damages them, the fan cage is usually in good shape. So I'm hoping that's going to be a case on mine. Obviously, we'll figure that out when we get it out. And then swapping it over is not that hard. And we'll get over to that, and I'll get over on the workbench, and we'll swap that out. So, all right, time to cut back over, and I'll bring you back in when I have that motor out. All right, hang tight. Okay, here we go. And sorry I didn't do any of the filming. I had my hands full, and it's gonna be kind of hard for me to do some close-up filming while both hands were pretty well occupied. So apologies, but now I have the old cage on the new motor. Now the old cage, I say old, but obviously this has to have been replaced at some point, and I did clean it. So I mean, it was dirty, but it really wasn't that bad. I did, of course, bench test it, and it's fine. And the old motor really wasn't that loud or anything. So, well, I'll have the new motor. I'll go ahead and put it in. I've gone this far, so I'll have to see if this actually fixes all that vibration noise that was going on in the car. If this doesn't solve it, means this might be causing some kind of resonant vibration. It's causing something else inside the car to vibrate. So, joy. I hope it's not that, because something like that's going to be really hard to pin down. One thing I will go ahead and mention, though, when I was bench testing, of course, I put the ground strap in, screwed it in. And this screw, even if you don't bench test and you just swap your motor out, run this screw into the hole while you still have the motor out, because something I quickly noticed is that this screw, in order to have a good ground, needs to cut threads into this sheet metal flange. And doing that, once you cut it the first time, it's going to run through pretty easy the second time. So do that on the bench, because that's going to be a real pain in the butt to try and do that in the car. So go ahead and get that and run and cut those threads in first. And then before I put this on the final time, I'm going to be sure to hit that connection with the dielectric grease, and then of course I'll be sure to hit these two connections with the dielectric grease before making those final wire connections. Because anytime you're working on electronics, especially when they're buried, like in a dashboard or something like this, make sure you've got a good solid connection that's going to last for a long time without giving you problems. Preventative, yes, always got to make sure you do all that. Okay, so and again, it's dark cold on my flashlight. The next thing you'll see is this back up in the car, because again, it's gonna be really close quarters, and it's gonna be hard for me to do. I can't get the camera in there, even on a tripod. I can't get that in there, and my hands. So filming is gonna be impossible. So anyway, come back when this is in the car. All right, catch you in a minute. All right, so the new motor is in. Wires are connected, dielectric grease, and yes, don't forget that vent tube. Honestly, I almost did. And actually putting it on while the motor was installed, it wasn't hard. It only took 10-15 seconds. It wasn't bad, so no worries. And yeah, getting those screws back in for the fan, getting them out too, you kind of have to go by braille. That's just the way it works, but take your time. You got right now. Moment of truth, tight garage, I say, like most people, and all the kids crap. Now, am I expecting this to be perfectly silent? No, it's a 50-year-old car, and you can't have those kind of expectations, but I do certainly hope it's a whole lot quieter than it was. So, moment of truth. Wow, that is a lot quieter. I mean, you still hear it, but like I say, it's a whole lot quieter than it was. And well, like I showed before, this switch. This switch is dead. But you can tell that's a whole lot quieter than it was. So, excellent. Okay, now replacing that switch, I don't have a new one yet. I'll actually do that in a separate video because that's also going to be a removing screws by braille kind of deal. So yeah, I'll try and do that separately. So here we go. The motor's replaced. Now it's just a matter of putting the inner wheel lining back in and the wheel back on. I mean, if you were even thinking about attempting something like this, it's the reason why I don't really go step by step through all that. I'm assuming you're going to be pretty confident in taking off wheels and doing those kind of things. So I don't belabor in that level of detail. So anyway, like all my videos, I hope this helped. And that's it. Y'all have a great day.